This is what most people assume what growing up in an Indian household looks like. We all are brought up with the notion that life is much harder growing up in an Indian household, and that is just something that is part of our culture. But do Indians really feel this way?
Did growing up in an Indian household affect your mental health?
According to me, I feel like Indian households are way more stricter than other households. Say judgmental relatives and stuff like that.
Probably the ones who are not brought up properly in their houses must be thinking there might be exceptions, but Indian families are not toxic unlike the European families which let go the children at the age of 14-15 on their own.
I feel parents are not perfect because they are the first time parents as well.
Growing up, I was a very chubby kid. So even as a child, I think I have been subjected to a lot of body shaming.
When I was younger, I was like very skinny, and they used to always make comments on that, or like, you know, like skin complexion and all that. So I feel like that really shapes sometimes how you look at yourself also.
It may not be, intentional, but that's just the way you know how it is, right? Like your relatives talking to you.
I think every Indian girl, like, she has gone through at some point. It started at home, by saying like, oh, you should like eat more, eat less, this complexion, that complexion, all this criteria. So I think every Indian girl will feel me when I say this.
Do you feel like you had to compromise on your dreams or likes because of your family or parents?
My father was a little orthodox. What I really wanted to do, I wouldn't use the word didn't allow me, because he was not one of those who would, but yes.
Your parents were lucky enough to receive. So if your parents did not have a chance to be highly educated, you would probably be pushed along certain paths which may not suit you the best.
My parents were very supportive. They are still very supportive. My mother is here. So yeah, they've never really stopped us from doing anything.
Not really. Whatever my dreams were not too big. So whatever I had envisaged in my studies and what I needed to do, it was quite comfortable. I mean, nobody came in the way of it.
I've always wanted to go and study in Delhi, but my parents are a bit overprotective, so they did not let me do that. So I think that's one small. I wouldn't say it's a small thing, but that's something that I didn't get to do because of my parents not.
Let's roll the clock back to 1940s. India had just gotten independence after years of oppression. The economic condition of the country, put it mildly, wasn't really the best. This is the world that our parents were born into. There were no clear job opportunity. It is no doubt that such an environment would have led to a more stricter parenting system.
To do with economical issues, the monetary issues, the families used to be big and the income source was limited. So that had restricted many of them to not pursue their dreams and compromise on it, get into a job at an early age to support the extended family.
I think the generation before us, the kind of economy that they were living in, it was hard economy. It wasn't as open as it is now. It wasn't as developed as it is now. So for them, getting a job, earning a stable income was the best possible scenario for them. They didn't think about dreams, aspirations, what I can do. I think very few people did that. Most people were very happy if they got a stable job. And I think when it came to their children, even though their children were brought up, say middle class or upper middle class, they still expected their children to get stable jobs, earn stable income and not try anything new. The fear of, the child not being able to support themselves or their parents. So I think that fear has led them to make sure that their children choose professions that enable them to earn well.
The world that we live in currently is very different to the world that our parents lived in. The economy is brimming with opportunities. Culturally, things are more progressive, and the youth in particular are open to more ideas.
The last generation who are going to be so innocent, bro. They're not that bad. I don't know what media is trying to portray, okay? Few person alright, but it's just it's their first frustration. They don't understand what is going on, because for them also, it's sudden change, the technology, it's so much change for them itself.
And they have also been brought up like that. So I feel like even we need to understand that also, where they are coming from.
I think that Indian parents are changing, especially millennials. I feel that they have changed a lot. For example, 40% more fathers are spending time with their children, and they are spending 50% more time than the previous generation did. Also, with respect to, having a supporting household, the millennial couples are sharing the household tasks, and they're trying to find a balance between raising the child and having a relationship with a partner and a family, right? As compared to the previous generation.
soon.
It goes without saying, misunderstandings and miscommunications is the leading cause behind why a lot of relationships turn sour. Generational gap is not just a buzzword that's been thrown around simply. It has real effects on the relationship between Indian parents and their children. Parents are not able to comprehend that the world their kids live in is totally different from theirs, which ultimately leads to confrontation and a lot of trauma for everyone involved.
You know, Indian parents tend to be far more protective and strict about their child and the way their child grows up especially.
There are few things that they can learn towards parenting, like they should also understand how to communicate with a child, because we are also teenagers, first time facing our hormones, first time facing things in life. So if you take it a little lighter on the kid, it's better.
You know, they also come from this mentality because their parents never taught them all this. But I always feel like Indian households especially, they should have this mentality. There's nothing wrong if they don't know about parenting, but they can always try to take the first step to learn about it. I feel like that is missing, you know, like they don't accept that, okay, oh, we can also be wrong sometimes. So that is not there. So
And
I
then
feel
they
like
are very clueless about like
yeah,
what's
they're very
going
clueless.
on,
I feel like they're the last generation of parents who are innocent also.
Yeah.
So like they don't understand a lot of things. But again, it's their own trauma also they carry.
Is Indian parenting as bad as they say though? It's not news that growing up in an Indian household can be harsh. But is it really that bad? Media and its various outlets have not done Indian parents much of a favor by demonizing them. But the real question is, are the stereotypes valid?
I don't think you can call it a stereotype because I feel like most Indian parents are the way that they show it to be, but it might be a little exaggerated.
Most of the media houses are all either funded by the foreign multimedia companies or multinational companies, either European standards or US standards, and they try to set that kind of image which today has no value there itself. So they try to set those kind of image and culture through the media on Indian parents and try to demonize them, saying that Indian parents are this way and that way.
It's like a reality check. I wouldn't say that it's completely true again, but there is a certain extent, and the way that's portrayed in media, I think to an extent is true. Even though the times are changing now, I feel like you cannot say that there is no truth to it. But yeah, definitely it can be exaggerated.
India has got its own cultural values and its own ethos, which is very strong. Today, India is growing, or despite the huge population, it's because of its purely cultural and family values which Indians follow.
And maybe this generation considers our generation parents to be very strict parents and sort of going by the rule book. And we had what I would call it is consequential parenting, where we would try to teach the children that if you don't do a certain thing, there are consequences. Whereas these days, parents are very fearful of punishing their children or showing them, that there is a consequence.
No, you cannot stereotype it, you cannot generalize it. Exceptions are there everywhere across the world. But overall, if you see, Indian family values are most, sort of looked upon by the globe.
We still believed in spare the rod, spoil the child. Whether it was right or wrong, I don't know. It worked for our parents, it worked for us.
I think we, at least in our mind, we are fairly liberal with our kids. I'm sure my kids will tell you otherwise. But we try our best to be as supportive as we can.
As a child, it's not easy, but then you have to understand at some point, that they are also coming from some place. And it's difficult to, when you have this mindset already, it's difficult to, overcome that.
Plus, we are kids, we don't have much to do, but they are handling job, family stress. We don't know what stress they are going through.
Yeah, they also go through a lot.
Having said that, I think we are perennial warriors. Indian parents are perennial warriors. They'll always worry about their children. Even when they grow up, they are also old, they'll continue worrying about them.
It's no joke that growing up in an Indian household can be hard. But one thing we all need to accept is that it was equally hard for our parents too. After all, no one taught them how to raise us. This doesn't take away from the trauma and toxicity that some people had to go through growing up. But at the same time, sometimes all it takes is an empathetic ear to change everything, regardless of who lends it forward.